Leave your ego at the door and get ready to be raw. This is Strength to Overcome, where real men find their strength in weakness. Hi guys, welcome back to the Strength to Overcome podcast. I'm Ryan here with my co-host Matt, and we're excited to be back with you this week. We've got a big week ahead, and Matt, I know you've got some cool things happening in your world, so we're pumped to get back after it this week. You doing okay, brother?
Yes, sir, I am. It is episode 28. I don't know if you just said that or not. Sometimes I black out as I'm sitting out the back of my home here and the golf cart, goes past. Actually, I think it was the beer cart that went past.
Nice.
And threw off the little intro there. So if you said episode 28, I've just repeated it. But let's talk a little bit more about the fact that it is birthday for you on the cards, and let's talk about the fact that you are crossing over into the back nine of life. We have just asked Siri, what is the average age for a male in the US, and it is 76. Now, if my records are accurate, you have just crossed over beyond the halfway point, so the whole midlife crisis, you're entering the back nine, all these analogies I can come up with. Is this accurate, Mr. Robertson?
I guess so. Hopefully, I haven't reached the back nine yet. I'd like to live till about 95, right? But yeah, the average age in America is down to 76 now for males. So it feels like I've been kind of stuck at the turn here the last few years. But yeah, if we're going to make the turn to the back nine, I guess this is the best time to do it, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking with a buddy in the gym the other day who I hadn't seen for a couple of weeks. And of course, walk up and, to those that play golf, the common phrase is, how you hitting them, right? And that can mean just in general. But he told me a funny little story about how he blew up a nice little 60 on the front and explained that the reason he blew up to a 60 was because he, was hitting 9 off the tee on a par 3 that he just couldn't get out of the drink. And it was just so funny because I remember playing with another good buddy of mine, Ski, who you remember was a trainer with us at 180, and I need to give him a shout out because it's his birthday as well. So happy birthday, Ski, and I hope you're doing well, mate. But I remember one time playing with Ski, it was just us, and it was a right to left fairway that I needed to hit, and at the time I couldn't really draw the ball. And I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with Paul about me not being able to draw the ball off the tee very well, with a long, driver or a wood. And so in this particular case, I couldn't get the ball to turn right to left. And if it didn't go right to left, it was going OB. And so I still remember this day where at one point he's like, dude, you're hitting 11. I just could not get a ball in play on this par 4. And he was at this point, he's in the cart. He's crying so hard. He's got tears streaming down his face because I just keep reaching for another ball. It's like a tin cup moment. I couldn't hit this bloody fairway. And in the end, I think I hit a wedge off the tee. I was lying 13 in the fairway. And so we had some fun with it. But, as we talk about life and, making the turn, and we've got all these golf stories we could draw from, where do you see yourself right now? Because you mentioned it just a second ago. You feel like you've been stuck at the turn, and for golfers, that means that you're in the clubhouse grabbing lunch or grabbing a beer, or you're doing something after the front nine before you embark on the back, and it can be a bit of a backlog as you hit that 10th tee to re-engage your round and see where you're going. So walk me through a little bit about what's going through your brain as you hit this new number in your life. That kind of, it's tough, right? You're hitting that age where you start to think, wait, I'm kind of halfway through the life expectancy, and you just said you want to hit 95, but what are you doing? What's in your brain now to make sure that you're not quite halfway, or even if you are, you're not going to fall into the stereotypical mindset of midlife crisis. I've got to buy a sports car. I've got to upgrade the missus. I've got to move my house. I've got to start a new career. I've got to do something crazy with my hair or get a tattoo. Where's your brain at, and what do you see in the next couple of years to turn around that mindset that you're stuck at the turn?
Well, we spent the last, 4 or 5 years getting Erica through medical school and kind of having that journey of her being a student again in medical school. And, in that time we got married, and, I had the gym, as everyone knows, at the time. And so the reason I felt like I've been at the turn is just because I've been kind of waiting and waiting and waiting for some of these life events to happen. And so over the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years, they've all kind of jumbled in where we've gotten married, she's finished medical school, and now we've had a baby. And so everything's kind of jumbled together in this little lump of 2 to 3 years. And now it's still in a waiting period for her to finish up residency and be what we would consider an attending physician at a hospital or at a practice, and kind of really flourish into that role that she's been working toward all these years still. So we're still kind of in that holding pattern of getting through that, but now we've got baby Callan here with us, and it's tough when you can almost fool yourself into thinking you're stuck when you're really just going through the process of getting to where you want to go. And it's something I've got to realize that hey, this is not just a holding pattern. This is the life we're living, and these are the things that are happening for us right now. And you gotta really stay in the moment, don't you?
Well, yeah, you more than anyone. I overheard somebody say something to a brand new dad the other day that had a week-old baby, and he was really tired, and he was kind of going through that grind of, wow, I've just gone from being just married to, wow, I've got another life that's my responsibility. And of course, the sleep is just destroyed, right? And this is part of why torture is surrounded by sleep deprivation and weakening you, right? Your willpower and your resistance is severely hampered when you're exhausted. The new dad said, well, how long before it wears off, and in the mindset of, wow, I'm kind of running on adrenaline. He's like, after about 6 months it's really really tough, because you get into this groove where there's adrenaline, there's excitement, there's newness, there's growth every day. Your baby is doing something new, and there's this wow kind of factor that goes with it. And then after about 6 months of being sleep deprived, cranky, tired, changing a million nappies, going through the motions, it can really take its toll. And I was kind of listening to this concept that was being shared by someone that's got kids that are a little bit older, and I was just listening in thinking, wow, it really does hit you like that, where you want to enjoy the process, but at the same time, that grind can really define you. And if you're not careful, you find yourself in a slippery slope where you could look at that and say, well, actually, it's more like years. And you feel like you're in that funk. So my question now is, you've listed some things that are happening with Erica's life, and things are going to drastically change when she gets a job opportunity. It could be in another state. There were definitely some moving happening. What is it that you are holding on to that's going to help you stay grounded in that desire as a man? And we've talked about this a lot in the past, where you've got to have something that you're working on outside of, yes, I'm going to be a great dad. Stretch in another episode talked about it. But what about you? What is Ryan Robertson looking towards to make sure that you don't fall into this groove that is only about Erica's career, only about the baby? What about you? What about your hopes and dreams? Where are you at in making sure you've got something that keeps you motivated?
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of my hopes and dreams, were they were originally with the golf world, and then they were, transitioned to fitness and the fitness world and the gyms that we owned and the gym that I owned at the end there. And now those things are gone. And so it's a solid question, but one I don't really have an answer to of, what's next beyond just being, Ryan, the stay-at-home dad. It's, we got to figure that out as we're going. Because we're as of right now, it's we kind of joke, semi-joke, but I'm pretty much retired at this point. So what is that going to look like if it is retirement? What is that going to look like, and how am I going to fill my time as things evolve?
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that retire and they're dead within a year, right? And we say it very candidly because it's death. It's over. Like, you're done. So why not be, drastic with it, in the concept that if you don't have something you're working toward, it changes everything about us. And there's so many guys out there that we've heard stories about. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to women either, but generally speaking, we've got this concept of, I hit 65 and I retire. But if you don't have something in place that's going to fill the void of 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, or the void of, I was working on a business or growing my company or whatever it was that they were doing, statistically, a lot of people, guys particularly, croak shortly after retirement. So if you're in that mindset of, yeah, I'm retired, sounds to me like we've got to kind of come up with something, not we as in you and me, but in general, as men, we've got to have something we're working toward to kind of keep us motivated. Otherwise, you can quickly find yourself in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting for things to happen. I think, didn't we talk about this last week, right? Waiting for the
Hmm.
people around you to have better moods before I'm in a better mood. Or, hey, I'm waiting for this, change in my finances to happen to me versus, no, I'm going to affect that in itself. So, my challenge to you, episode 28 here, as we celebrate your birthday, this episode is to come up with something that is for Ryan Robertson, because at some point, Erica does have a career. Maybe she's got her own practice. Callan is at some point going to be old enough to move out, move on, or whatever it ends up looking like. And now you're going to be empty handed with this. Well, okay, well, who am I now? Whereas if we actually say, right, let's come up with something now, even if it's undefined, at least have a canvas that you say, right, something's got to go on this. What's it going to be?
Yeah, that's huge. Having something. Have you noticed yourself get a little bit more of a spark, with you being back at Crunch and going back into the training world like we've talked about? Have you kind of felt that spark a little bit again?
Yeah, no doubt. And earlier episodes where we talked about this uncertainty about which career path I was going to go down. And for quite a few episodes, I really wasn't sure. I really didn't want to get back into the health and fitness business because I knew what it took. I knew what it looked like. And I've always ended up in some form of management, ownership, something bigger like you've been in, right? You just end up finding opportunities, something happens, you have a conversation with someone, bang, before you know it, you've got a, new set of hours and new responsibilities and new opportunities. And I wrestled with that because I know that I'm capable and I believe that I've been gifted with some skills that help me do really well in those positions. But at the same time, I really didn't want to do that at this time around because I've got little kids and I don't want to miss out on it, right? And I had a conversation with someone, just this week about how fast it goes. And before you know it, kids are gone. And, if I want to work my ass off when they're gone, maybe that's the time, right? But right now, I need that flexibility. And so I chose the fitness industry over the carpentry industry because of the frozen shoulder that's, getting so much better, thank the Almighty Creator for that. But I've gone back into the gym system, happy to be just a trainer, making an impact on, coming up on 20 clients, that I'm responsible to help get to where they want to be. I get to work out on my own shoulder and my rehab work on a daily basis. I don't have management hanging over my head as far as that's the next step, because this time around, my next step is to have a bigger impact in this field and get into the speaking side of things on a larger scale. I've got some books that have already been written in my brain. I've just got to put out there. I've got this podcast that I'm super passionate about. And of course, the retreat that I want to develop and host others that are going through these type of life-changing moments that hopefully one day you can be a part of, right? So getting back into the fitness business got me closer to all my goals. And so I've had that spark, as you asked, because it aligns with everything that I've got written down on paper and that I go through every day in meditation and in prayer and in gratitude already, that I've already got all those things right in my hands, and everything that's happened in my life has led me to this place where now training is a joy. I'm working with some great people. Everyone on my calendar is a lot of fun, but they're all hurting. They're all struggling. They're all looking for help to get out of where they want to go, or out of where they are to where they want to go, rather. And I get to be a part of that. And it's just fine tuning all my skills to be able to speak to a larger audience, author the right material, develop the right retreat, and help everyone that sits around that campfire, that first campfire we have at that retreat, where people are going to be breaking down and sharing moments in their life that's brought them to that retreat. I cannot get there unless I stay focused on those goals and not get caught in the mud. And so that's why my challenge to you is, what does it look like 10 years from now for you, 5 years from now, a year from now? Or, okay, 25, 30 years from now on the other end of this? Are you going to hit 65 and retire, or are you going to actually be saying, right, no, right now, Callan is, what is he this week, 17, 18 weeks old,
Hmm.
but I am Ryan Robertson and I've got a lot to give. I'm just not sure what that looks like right now, but I am not just Erica's husband. I'm not just Callan's father or over the next couple of years, there might be more kids, right? I am Ryan Robertson, and this is bam, blank, right? You've got an empty space to put something in that very few people get the opportunity to do. And my excitement for you hopefully comes through in this episode that you get to put into that space whatever you can imagine. And there is absolutely nothing stopping you from pulling it off. There really isn't.
Yeah, it's kind
So
of
when I
wide
speak
open.
like that, yeah, give me a couple of things. Go live. Listen, I've talked about mine several times, several episodes. Give me a couple of things that you think, man, in 10 years from now, I would blank.
I mean, we've talked about me getting into real estate, investments of real estate and, houses and commercial stuff, things like that. So that's a thought that's put out there, start snatching up properties here and there and, kind of managing those as we go along could be something that could really be a hobby for me, if you want to call it a hobby or a new venture.
Now, does that check a number box? Because I know that quite often you and I, off camera, we'll talk about numbers, we'll talk about percentages, we'll talk about commissions, we'll talk about what I need to make and how it works in this gym structure versus what you had at your two gyms versus what I had at 180 Fitness. I mean, you've got a very number driven mindset and you're very good at it. So that checks that box. But what in the morning would you like to wake up and go and do? Is it that or is it something else?
Yeah, that's what I don't really have a good handle on right now. Is definitely got to shape that vision a little bit more. Yeah, because I wouldn't call real estate or that a passion by any means at this point, but it does, like you said, check kind of the number box.
Yeah, so you're in that position where I would, if I was your trainer again, which I was back, 15 years ago now,
Yeah.
I would be looking at you saying, right, we're crushing the gym, you're getting in great shape, but for what, right? You're not a golfer anymore, you don't have your own gym anymore. Like, okay, so your wife's a doctor, she's making good money, Callan's in daycare, so you're working with me 3, 4 days a week because you can, but what are you working towards? So I would really hit you between the eyes, and, I guess I'm doing it now, and you're not going to come up with an answer in this episode, but I will be challenging you behind the scenes and week to week, I'm going to kind of try and bring this back up a little bit and say, right, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a next, if you don't have something that you're working toward that identifies you, I want you to try and come up with something so that at that moment, whether it be 1, 5, 10, or 15 years from now, where things change in your life, you've still got, no, this is my North Star. This is what I'm working towards,
Yeah.
right? So that you can stay focused and lasered in on something bigger and better. And that's not to say you can't do that as just being a dad, but to walk back to Stretch when we had him on, he's not just a stay-at-home dad to, what has he got, 6 or 7 kids? That guy's a businessman as well, right? He's always working on, finding the next opportunity, the next deal, or helping kids out at the local school where he does a little bit of side coaching and stuff like that, right? He's still got the identity as Jamal Sampson. He's not just a stay-at-home dad. So I'll be hitting you with that to make sure that you do have something, because I think as men, this is where a real lack of drive can come in and snuff your enthusiasm. And with your journey, and you've talked about this, so I'll be open with the audience, the stuff that you feel like in your life you've got to take, medically speaking, kind of nullifies some of that excitement in there to make sure that the low doesn't become too low. So if you don't have something outside of that to kind of pull you out of that, my concern would be that, those lows might creep in another way and then the dosage goes up. And before you know it, now you see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You end
Yeah.
up in this situation where you don't have anything that's just yours. So you look for something else, even if it's innocent. It could be just a matter of slipping back into some old habits, which can easily take a hold, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How is it being a golfer that's capable of owning a gym, running numbers for someone, staying at home with the baby? How are you holding up as we speak with that medication side, with the 1 or 2 bourbons? Where are we at with that?
Doing okay. Yeah, doing okay. Just kind of taking it day by day and trying to manage things as best we can. And right now the focus has been on Callan and, taking care of him as Eric is back to work and all that. So, I've kind of put all that aside a little bit and, you know, like I said, day to day the focus is on him. So it's kind of where we are.
Do you feel like it's already a bit monotonous?
Little bit here and there. For me, the monotony kind of is nice just because I know what to expect day in and day out. If every day were like crazy different, I think it'd be tougher for me. I think it's easier on my mindset just to have, you know, the same thing day in and day out. I know what to expect and I can get in a rhythm and a routine and that sort of thing. So
Is that part of why that left brain and, good with numbers and spreadsheets and business mindset, does that kind of fall into what you've just described there?
yeah, I think a lot of it's the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've got you right in those moments where when I used to train you, I think we were trying to take your mind from battling where you were at that time. And now that I even know you more than I did back then, it's almost as if we're in training sessions, in some of these podcasts where we're helping each other out, right? You've pushed me a lot behind the scenes. You've encouraged me. You've kind of gotten me over the hump in some tough times, some tough areas. And now I feel like I'm coming to you as your trainer and saying, right, you don't have a goal. You don't have anything that's just yours, and you really need to. Otherwise, before you know it, to talk in client terms, you'd just drop off.
Hmm.
Right? Before you know it, I'd miss you for a week, a couple of weeks would go by, you haven't made it into the gym. And it's not because you don't enjoy my company or the training, it's got value, you're doing okay, but you don't really have a goal.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that as we look at people around us and some of the decisions that they make, I think we quite often want to judge some of the things that they're going through, but we don't really understand maybe what their goal is or where they're at in the challenge. I think we've got to have a little bit of patience. I think we've got to have a lot of forgiveness for the times that we've made those judgments. I know that I've done that a lot with my clients over the years where I might have wanted something for them or I might have pushed them, but now I'm in the position where I'm working this week on helping my clients establish their own goals, at least so I've got a better understanding of what they're trying to achieve. And you might say, well, Matt, you've already been working with these people for 5, 6 weeks now. Why would you not already know those? But we all know people are incredibly guarded, especially with strangers and new people. And as you go through this process as a trainer or as getting to know someone, it's a lot easier to share once you know that that trust has been built. And so this week alone, I'll be going through my client list and encouraging them, almost requiring them to update their goals so that I've got a better understanding. But it's not just for me, it's for them. Why are they with me? Why are they in the gym? Why are they trying to achieve something that does have a monetary value associated to it? Or are we going to just drop off the back end, right? So I have to look at all of that with you. I've got to look at it with my clients and I have to look at it to myself. And I have had so many conversations in the last couple of weeks where I have found moments that are divine appointments, which we've talked about before, that have helped me hone my vision for what it is that I'm going to be doing in a year from now, 2, 5, 10, 20 years from now. And now I almost wake up every day with this expectancy that something else is going to hit me,
Mm.
come to me, find me. There'll be something in a conversation. And I'm telling you, mate, it is literally daily where something gets said to me that makes me put it into this filter of, wow, I hadn't thought of that. I need to make an adjustment to the vision. I need to do XYZ to prepare for that. And now, every single day for me, I have an excitement. So when I wake up, my mind isn't, Mrs. Jones. All right, what am I going to do with Mrs. Jones today? It's not that at all. It's, I wake up with this expectancy of how is the Almighty going to bring me the next nugget, the next dose of this is where you're headed. This is a tool you need, because now my goal and expectancy of the future is so on high alert. I'm ready for anything you say, anything I say that I hear myself say, anything a client says, a member says. Somebody cuts me off the lights and winds down the window and leans out and says something. It doesn't matter. It will come every single day. And I remember last week's episode, we talked about chasing that joy from within. And as I've done that this week, I've caught myself so many times telling myself, Matt, I'm full of joy. I am full of joy. Look for the moment that's happening right now. And how is it beneficial to your overall goal of what you're trying to achieve? And this week has just been lights out, moment after moment, story after story, event after event, to the point where now my vision is even It's brighter. It's not black and white. It's got good color. It's got depth. It's got touch. It's got smell. It's got feel. Everything about every single day is towards this goal. And I don't think many people have that. And so it's my challenge to the audience today. It's my challenge to you. It's my challenge to myself to maintain focus on your goals. And if you don't have them and you haven't written them down and you don't look in the mirror and say them, you don't have them.
Right.
Dive in and speak a little bit to that, because I know as a trainer, you were probably lights out good at that because your attention to detail is something you're very good at. How did you do it? What did you do for your golfing clients? What did you do for your training clients? Because now I'm really zeroing in on the fact that you don't have any right now, but you've done it in the past in both your careers.
Yeah. Yeah, in the fitness world, we would sit down the very first session or very first sit down would be, you know, diving deep into the person's goals and really figuring out what they want to achieve. That was like the first time we meet. And, then having a goal review session every 12 weeks where we sit down again after a 12-week period and, review what was our goal, where are we right now, where do we want to go next, and, update the goals every 12 weeks, every 3 months. And so that really should be how we're attacking things now, right? Even if we're not in the gym, or if you don't apply it to a, physical weight loss or muscle gain goal, applying that to your life is probably a more important aspect as well. So the listeners can definitely take a lot from what you're saying about, the way you've, taken, your goal and kept it in the forefront of your mind every day to where you're going about your days and having these interactions and having things that directly impact your goal and where you want to go. Super important to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, and even as a golf pro, you were working with people that probably came in and didn't really even know what their goal was. Maybe they wanted to get better so they could play with their spouse. Maybe they wanted to just be able to go out and not be completely embarrassed, right? I mean, it's not always a number on a scale. It's not always a number on a scorecard. There's usually an emotional attachment to the why.
Right. Yeah, they want to feel better about themselves, or whatever it is. It's always a little bit deeper than just the surface level answer.
Yeah, so I think next week we've got a terrific guest lined up if things fall the way we hope. And so it'll probably be the week after. So we're probably looking at 2 weeks. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Robertson, and say, right, in 2 weeks, you don't have to share your heart and your soul because this podcast is definitely open. It's vulnerable. We are sharing a lot, but you may not be ready yet. Maybe it won't come to you between now and 2 weeks. But I'm definitely going to make a note to myself to sort of check in on you and say, right, where are we at? Have we at least sat down and written some things out? Do we have something on paper? And we all know the importance and power of being able to do that. I don't know if I shared this story. I think it was a long time ago, if I did, but it was when I went out of my carpentry career. I went back to school to becoming a trainer, and the presenters talked about where do you see yourself in 5 years? They made us get out a piece of paper. They made us write down what do you want to drive in 5 years from now? And everyone would write this down, and where do you want to live in 5 years from now? And we'd all write this down, and how much do you want to make annually in 5 years from now? And there are a couple of other things that we had to write down. And they got to the end of the drill and they said, listen, the reason we made you write these down is because they've done a study and they tracked people for 20 years over the course of, X amount of years, right? Not just one group, but year after year, they tracked these people and they tried to figure out what was the common factor in people that achieved certain things versus those that didn't. And they determined that the common denominator, the common factor of people that achieved their goals and those that didn't was one simple thing. Did you write it down? And there's a lot of research. We won't get into the rabbit hole type stuff here, but there is a frequency, there is a power, there is something very proven to be true here that if you get paper, pen, you physically write out your goals word by word or line by line or whatever it is, and you speak it. You're using different senses, right? You speak it, look at yourself in the mirror and say it. You've got it written out, and you might write it out each day too, right? There's power in all those things, and it's been proven that there is a common denominator, and those that achieved certain things have written it down. And I remember doing that drill, and I have that piece of paper somewhere, but it was a while ago now, because it happened. I remember finding this piece of paper, and I went through the list, and at the time I'd written down I wanted to drive, a Subaru Outback wagon or whatever, I'd written down. I think it was, something with a turbo in it or something special. And of course, at one point I did have that vehicle. It's been changed since then, but I achieved it fairly quickly after writing these down. I'm talking about the list that I wrote in 2002 or three. And of course, by 2007, I had my own gym, which was on the list, and I was making well over the number that I'd written down as well. And so within a handful of years, I'd achieved all those things. And at some point, not that long after that, I was debt free and owned my own home. No car payment, no house payment, debt free. And all these things that I'd written down, I'd achieved. And then, of course, life throws a lot of different things at you. And before you know it, you can look back and go, wait a minute, how could I have achieved all those things at one point in my life? And now I look at this point in my life and say, where am I at? What happened to those things? Where is my progression from that moment? And of course, we've documented the crap that we're in by things that we've done and decisions we've made, and hasn't gone the way we wanted. So now, over the course of the last, I would say 8, 9 months. No, we're dating back to 2024 now. So we're looking at 11, 12 months. I did start going through this process again. And as we know through this documentary of podcasts, we are literally watching my life go from where I was to a completely different direction. And so I'm very excited about what's coming. So I've got it written down. I speak it. I write it. I see it in my visions. I look at myself in the mirror. I do all these things, right? So the goal setting for you as we celebrate your birthday week challenge is to make sure that you sit down somewhere between now and the next couple of weeks in a quiet space that you've got where you can sit down and just start jotting things down and fine tuning that list over the next 3, 6, 12 months to knowing what you really want to achieve and then going after it. Because I want for you in 5 years to have achieved whatever you've dreamed of. And if you haven't dreamed of anything, then that's what you'll have. You'll have nothing. Now, I'm not saying you won't be married and have kids, but you can't achieve anything that you haven't written down or you're working towards. So big
Yeah.
challenge to my man, Romeo, as I used to call you. Happy birthday, brother. But big challenge to you, big challenge to myself to stay true to my goals. And for our audience, if you don't have a list of goals, please stop what you're doing, make some time, get your thumb off the phone, stop scrolling for, 5 minutes a day and update that list. Challenge for you, challenge for me, challenge for everybody. Make it happen. Otherwise, 5 years from now, you will achieve a blank sheet of paper.
I like it. It's good stuff, man.
Appreciate it. That's it. That's all I got for you this week.
That's it.
I get off my high horse now, as I like to, I like to motivate, but I want it for you more than you realize. You're a good guy with the ability to do anything in your life. And I hate seeing you down and out and not having a goal. You're going to be a great dad no matter what you do. You're going to be a great husband. You're going to be a great friend to me. But I know you're capable of much, much more. So it's a personal challenge to you to make sure that you pull this off. And you've inspired me to get to where I am today. And you've got some work to do off camera with some things I'm still going through that aren't always something I throw out in front of everyone, but most of the time people know I'm going through, and you've been a blessing to me, so I'm trying to give it back to you now in this concept of goals and making sure you've got something for the back nine of your life so that you don't feel like you're running out of holes, but you feel like you've got a bright future, a bright back nine coming right at you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. All right, guys. That's all we got. Like, subscribe, share the podcast, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, guys. Stay strong. Happy birthday to everyone this week.